What a day. We have gotten so much information for EA Sports College Football. It's still coming out as I'm making this video. Every time I look at my phone, there's more updates and more posts on social media. But we're going to break it down in this video. I might have to end up making multiple videos because there's so much information. But we're going to go over all the big information that was dropped today. So the big headliner that dropped this morning was that EA Sports was sending out the contracts to all the FBS players for them to opt into the game. So all of this information, for the most part, is either coming from Matt Brown's newsletter, the Extra Points newsletter that's referenced all the time in my videos. I'm going to link that down below. And then also multiple ESPN articles that were released this morning as well, and I'll link those down below. So EA sent out today to the FBS scholarship players an email with all the details how to get to the contract. They needed the Compass app on their phone, blah, blah, blah. Y'all don't really care about all of that. But basically, they would get on their phone, they could review the contract, and they could opt into the game. If they do opt into the game, they will receive $600 payment as well as a free copy of the game. So some people are saying that's not enough money. Some people are saying that's a pretty good deal. I'm not going to get into all of that in this video. Like I said, I'm probably going to make multiple videos because there's so much to talk about. But they're getting $600 and a free copy of the game if they opt in to be in College Football 25. So there have been some players that have already opted in, and after doing so, they have posted on social media that they did so. It's kind of like an ad. It says hashtag EA partner or whatever. But these players, I've seen like Malachi Moore. I've seen Will Johnson. I've seen Luke Altmaier. There's multiple guys that have posted. Like it's an ad for the game, but also it's confirming that they are going to be in the college football video game. So it's awesome to see. I mean, this is groundbreaking stuff from EA here. One, we've never had a college sports video game with real players. That has never happened, so that's brand new. And then two, this is easily like the largest NIL deal in the history of NIL so far. I mean, this is over 11,000 players that they are putting into this game through an NIL deal. I mean, if you do the math, I think it's around like $7 million they are spending just to get these players into the game. And I should clarify, I mean largest, not necessarily in terms of monetary value that they're spending, but largest in terms of how many players are involved. I mean, this is a group deal here. This is 11,000 players all agreeing to be in this game. So just super cool stuff. So Matt Brown has said on Twitter today that EA is committed to having 85 players per roster in this game. That makes sense because there's 85 scholarship players per team in D1 football. But he also clarified that not every single scholarship player is necessarily going to be in the game. You can opt in to be in the game and then not actually be put in the game. So walk-ons may be in the game depending on how much playing time they get. Right, so if you're a walk-on and by the start of the season, you're third string and you might see the field, you might be in the game. Or maybe you're second string and you're getting playing time. Maybe you're starting, who knows? But basically, the way I've interpreted this is that the 85 players that are getting the most playing time will be in the game. So even if you're a scholarship player, if you're like 8th string and you're never going to see the field, you're not going to be in the game. Or if you're a walk-on, but you actually will get some playing time, you will be in the game. And we also know that EA is going to update the roster throughout the season. So that's not really something we had in the past with NCAA football, but now with the transfer portal and so many players going to different schools and switching things up, we're supposed to get roster updates from EA throughout the year as rosters switch around and players might move up or down the depth chart. So what happens if a player does not opt into the game? If a player does not opt into the game, EA is going to make a generic player to replace them. It's just going to be some random dude with a random name, random skin tone, random hometown. And then according to this ESPN article, their overall will be based on the traditional strength or weaknesses of a position over the past decade for that school. So basically, if a player opts out, let's say they're a quarterback, they will replace the real player that opted out with a fake player that has an overall based on what that school typically has at that position over the past 10 years or so. So yeah, let's say you're a quarterback. Let's say you're Jalen Milroe for Alabama and you were to opt out. And I think I actually saw earlier that he's opted in, but let's just say he opted out. Instead of just promoting their second string to starter in the game, what they're going to do is just replace Jalen Milroe with some random dude And then they're going to look at the quarterbacks over the past decade for Alabama who have been pretty good, and they're just going to give them an overall for probably about what that would be. Probably like around 90 or so. So that way it'll still be pretty accurate for that team over the past several years. And it's not going to be like something completely random, but the avatar will be random. The overall will be based on historical data. Okay, so in the ESPN article, Daryl Holt, who is the EA Sports Senior Vice President, he said that gamers will be allowed to create their own players, but they will not be allowed to create opted out players. So that's kind of interesting. There's a quote here that says, "I won't reveal how we're dealing with that, but yeah, you won't be able to edit that." So basically, going back to that Jalen Milroe example, if Jalen Milroe were to opt out, even though we can create and edit players, it says we won't be able to create Jalen Milroe basically. And again, he didn't share what that system in place is to prevent us from doing that. But I would assume if like Jalen Milroe were to opt out and you tried to create a player that said that his name was Jalen Milroe, it won't let you. It'll probably pop up like an error and say like you can't do this or something. On one hand, I'm sure there will be several workarounds to this where it's easy to get around it. On the other hand, I wonder if EA will take that very seriously because they obviously want to avoid any lawsuits like the one that ended up killing this game in the past. So I guess we'll just have to see. We'll see what the customization looks like. We'll see how much we can edit players and rosters, how much we can create players, like to what extent. I'm hoping that it'll be like very robust where we can create and do whatever we want. But it sounds like there'll be some sort of system in place where we will not be able to create the players that opted out. Okay, so I think that's everything about the real players opting in. But going off of that, as you can imagine, it sounds like there's only FBS players, only FBS teams. All 134 FBS teams have been confirmed by EA. All the teams have posted on social media, but there's no FCS teams at launch. Maybe later down the line. Daryl Holt said for year one, the focus is FBS, but they're expecting to add to this project and program as they go forward. So no FCS at launch. It sounds like maybe they'll be added later after launch, like months down the line, or maybe he means like down the road, like years, like maybe CFB 26 or 27 or 28. So again, that's just something we will have to see, but at launch 100% it'll only be FBS teams. So moving on to head coaches, there will be no head coaches in the game. Now I do not know if this means like literally their name will not show up, or if they just won't be like on the sidelines, like you're not going to see literal Lane Kiffin in the game. But I would assume you'll still see the name Lane Kiffin in the game. Like I assume the head coach of Ole Miss is Lane Kiffin. Maybe I'm interpreting that totally wrong, but I would assume to be like NCAA 14, where like the head coach of Alabama was still Nick Saban, but you never saw Nick Saban in the game. I assume that is the route they are taking, where the head coaches are still like listed in the game. You just don't see them. I could be completely wrong about that. They might not be in the game at all, which would be kind of crazy, but I assume it's the former. Despite there being no head coaches though, the teams are still going to individually play like they do in real life. So the play styles and the playbooks are still going to represent the teams accurately compared to real life. So like obviously you're not going to hop into the game and Iowa is running the air raid. Like you'll be able to change them to the air raid, but like the default thing for Iowa is not going to be the air raid. But I kind of feel like that goes without saying. And a great quote here from Daryl Holt. He says that they plan to show that wide open aspect of explosive gameplay in college football. To me, that's basically comparing it to Madden and the NFL, because college football is so much more explosive. Like you have teams averaging like 50 a game. Obviously, that doesn't happen in the NFL. So we're going to see that explosiveness in college football in this video game. Daryl Holt also said that customization will be in the game. We still do not know to what extent. Matt Brown has talked about this a little bit, but Matt Brown was asked on Twitter, "Can you please find out if there is a team builder or create a school feature?" He said, "What I think I can say without getting my number blocked at EA headquarters is that I have been told that user-generated content is a priority." And he also added, "I don't think it's worth panicking over lack of customization tools." So to me, that sounds like Matt Brown knows more than he's allowed to tell. I mean, he basically said that, like what he said, what I can say without getting in trouble is that user-generated content is a priority, and that we shouldn't worry about the lack of customization tools. So to me, there's going to be a lot of customization. I think that means we are going to have conference realignment, create a player, which we already have confirmed. I think we're going to have create a team. I think team builder to some extent is going to make a return. I think the playoff will be expandable or shrinkable. I think all these customization things are going to be available. So like for me, customization is massive, specifically team builder or create a team, create a school. And I think it is going to be back to some extent. So some other random things that were confirmed today, even though I think some of these were already confirmed, but we know there will be NIL in the game to some extent. There will be a transfer portal. The college football playoff will be in the game. And here's the one that kind of caught my eye is that every single bowl game will be in the game. So obviously the big ones like the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl, those are going to be in the game. But even some of the smaller ones like the Holiday Bowl or like the Pop-Tart Bowl, that will be in the game too. And then even the Senior Bowl post on social media, which the Senior Bowl is not one of the traditional postseason bowls. The Senior Bowl is when, like seniors play in the game to kind of improve their draft stock. And so they even post on social media what looks like a confirmation that they're in the game. They didn't say that they're in the game, but to me, it looks like a confirmation, and that would be an awesome feature to be in the College Football 25. Okay, so the last big thing I want to talk about, and like I said, I'm going to make more videos because there's just so much to talk about, but the last big thing in this video is that the commentators have confirmed that they are in the game on social media. So they are Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, David Pollock, Kevin Connors, Jesse Palmer, Reese Davis, and Desmond Howard. And so they all post on social media that they're in College Football 25. As you'll probably notice, a lot of those guys are on game day, which makes sense because we're supposed to have college game day in College Football 25. So a lot of those guys you'll see on game day, but some of those guys are also going to be commentators. Most definitely Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler, but I'm also assuming like Jesse Palmer, Kevin Connors, Reese Davis. I assume those guys will also be calling games, which makes sense because one of my last videos, I talked about how there's probably going to be multiple broadcast crews, so that supports that idea. Now, Pat McAfee and Lee Corso, neither of them have been confirmed to be in this game. No non-ESPN guys except David Pollock, because technically he's not with ESPN anymore, but no other non-ESPN guys have been confirmed, so nobody from Fox like Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, Eric Collins, nobody that doesn't work for ESPN has not been confirmed for this game. Hopefully more of those guys will be confirmed. I would love to see Pat McAfee. I would love to see Gus Johnson. I would love to see Lee Corso. I love to see all those guys. So I guess we'll have to see. But the guys that did get mentioned, I think there were 7 of them. I mean, that's a stacked crew. Absolutely love those 7 names that we have. So just a ton of good information today. This game is coming out soon. We're getting a lot of info fast. I think Matt Brown said he's going to have more info tomorrow, so I'll definitely keep y'all updated on that. But I am so excited. Oh, and one more thing. The game's actually showing up on the Microsoft Store on Xbox. It's also showing up on PlayStation. So if you look it up, it'll come up. You can click on it. It'll tell you some information about the game. You obviously can't buy it or pre-order it yet. That'll come soon, but it's showing up on the store now. So we're just a few months away. I cannot wait. I am so excited for this game. Definitely follow me on Instagram, Bring NCAA Back. I posted all this information on there first. This just allows me to elaborate a little more. Definitely subscribe here. I'm going to continue uploading videos, and I will see y'all in the next one.